We want you to know that it's okay to talk to the police. We all want the same thing, which is safer communities. We also understand that some people may not feel comfortable speaking with police. In either case, it's important for everyone to know what their rights are during different interactions with police officers. The following video, created for the Toronto Police Service, represents the first installment of that work. Expect more in the coming months.
Know your rights with the Toronto Police. Police always have a duty to serve and protect the public. This includes their duty to uphold your rights. It doesn't matter your age, race, or what neighborhood you're in, everybody should be treated fairly, including people in high crime areas, including people who are homeless. Positive interactions between the police and the public are important. Police have a duty to treat people fairly. While you are not subject to the same duties, engaging with police in a calm and respectful manner can help ensure positive interactions. Topics to be discussed here include carding, informal interactions, street checks, and interactions related to the Trespass to Property Act. The provincial government created Regulation 5816, the Street Check Regulation. This regulation prohibits the arbitrary collection of identifying information by police, referred to as carding. Arbitrary means based on random choice or personal whim, rather than any legally permissible reason. The regulation also dictates when police may question members of the public for the purposes of investigating general criminal activity in a community, inquiring into suspicious activities to detect offenses, and gathering information for intelligence purposes.
When it comes to street checks, your participation is voluntary. You have the right not to answer that officer's questions. You have the right to walk away. Different rules apply when an officer has reasonable suspect that a specific offense has been committed or will be committed, or if that officer is undercover, is acting under the authority of a warrant or court order, or when you are required by law to identify yourself. For example, when you're driving a motor vehicle.
So what is carding? Carding is the arbitrary collection of identifying information by police, often associated with racial profiling. An officer's attempt to collect identifying information is likely to be arbitrary if the officer's attempt is motivated by the fact that the person being questioned happens to fall within a broad or vague race-based description, is merely in a high crime location, has declined to answer a question they are not legally required to answer, or attempts to discontinue interacting with the police when the person has the legal right to do so. Ontario law explicitly prohibits carding. It is illegal. Let's talk about some examples of police activity that are permitted under Regulation 5816 and what your rights are when you are approached by police. If an officer stops you and asks you about crimes in the area, you can choose to answer or not, ask, "Am I free to go?" Ask, "Am I being detained?" And if you're not being detained, you can walk away. If the officer asks for identifying information, such as your name, address, or age, the officer has a duty to inform you that you're not required to provide any identifying information, inform you why they're attempting to collect that information, and offer a receipt of the interaction on the spot that contains the officer's name, badge, division, date, time, location, and reason you were asked on the receipt. Provide that receipt if requested. You have the right to request it. Uphold your right to leave. If you're on the street and an officer starts to speak with you without any kind of investigative purpose, what can you do? You can ask, "Why are you talking to me? Am I free to go? Am I being detained?" At any time, you can choose to remain silent.
In an informal interaction, the officer has a duty to inform you why you're being stopped, to uphold your right to not answer questions, and uphold your right to leave. Whether you and the officer have a conversation or not, you can both part ways and go about your day. This is just an informal conversation. It is not carding or a regulated interaction.
Interactions under the Trespass to Property Act. Toronto Police have agreements with Parks and Rec and the TTC to enforce the Trespass to Property Act. Police have duties under the Act. In particular, police are empowered to investigate people they reasonably suspect are trespassing on private property. For the purpose of the Act, Private property includes TTC, TCHC, and city park property. Trespassing means being somewhere you are prohibited from being, engaging in prohibited activity on private property, for example, loitering or littering, or being on private property after you are directed to leave by the occupier. When an officer reasonably suspects that you are trespassing, the officer can ask you to demonstrate that you have a right to be there. And if you can't or won't do that, they can insist that you leave the property. Police can also insist you stopped any prohibited activity. If you refuse to leave or to stop engaging in prohibited activity, police can issue you a Provincial Offences Act ticket or arrest you. Police can also arrest you right after you have left the premises if they believe on reasonable and probable grounds that you have just committed a trespass, but only if you refuse to give the police your name and address, or they have reasonably and probable grounds to believe that the name or address you have given them is false. Unless the police have grounds to detain or arrest an individual, if a person wishes to leave, including by leaving the property or entering their own private home, police must let the person do so. The courts have told the police that to treat a trespass arrest as a last resort, that should only be attempted if other options prove ineffective to address a legitimate public safety concern. In other words, when faced with an apparent trespass, unless public safety cannot be addressed without making an arrest, police should instead caution the individual, order them to leave, or give them a POA ticket. If police question you in relation to the act, you can ask questions. For example, why are you stopping me? Asking me questions. Am I free to go on my way? Am I free to leave the property? Provide information sufficient to demonstrate your right to be present on the property. That could be your ID or other information if it satisfies the officer. For example, you could tell them your name and apartment number or offer to show them your proof of TTC payment. And you can stop engaging in prohibited activity. Or leave the property or continue on your way within the property after the officer confirms you are free to do so. Ask that the police leave you alone, let you move on, or give you a POA ticket and then leave you alone, in which case you will have to provide them with your name and address. Assuming you don't live there, you may still have to leave the property. Note, if you choose to remain silent and refuse to leave in circumstances where the police believe you are trespassing, the police may decide to arrest you in order to identify you and issue you a POA ticket. Remember, police powers under the Act only apply when they have a reasonable suspicion that a trespass has been or will be committed. Without a reasonable suspicion, police must not attempt to collect identifying information from you. If they attempt to collect identifying information in an arbitrary or discriminatory manner, they are likely engaging in carding, which is illegal. Complaints. If at any time you feel you were mistreated by a police officer, you can file a complaint with the Office of the Independent Police Review Director, the Human Rights Tribunal of Ontario, or the Toronto Police. If you have privacy-related concerns about the collection of your personal information, or if you would like to see the information collected, you can file a privacy complaint or request a copy of your personal information by contacting the Access and Privacy section of the Toronto Police. If you are not satisfied with the response, you can appeal to the Information and Privacy Commissioner of Ontario.